welcome to the Free Cheese episode 470. I'm your Joe Dix, joined by Matt Zellner.
Hello.
Mark Augustiniak.
What's up?
The Free Cheese is a weekly video game podcast about video games brought to you once a week by thefreecheese.com. This week, Season 10 continues with X-Men 2 Clone Wars for the Sega Genesis. Matt, what's your mutant power?
I don't know. Oh, no.
Mark, what's Matt's mutant power?
He can sweat any liquid that he wants.
I think that's just called cancer. I don't think that's...
No, I'm thinking if you could, if you had an energy drink, right? Like, you had a favorite. If you thought about it hard enough, and you could sweat it out, so you don't have to buy them anymore. You just make your own.
You would drink that.
I mean, you're turning your sweat into the drink. It's not your sweat anymore at that point. It's
Yeah, I guess. It's still weird knowing it came out of me.
It's a mutant power. Don't question it.
What do you...
All right. Fair enough. Mark, what's your mutant power?
I don't know, Matt. What's my mutant power?
I don't know. Oh. Mark, okay. He is like Bayonetta, and when he has his long hair, his hair does all the fighting for him.
Oh, that's good.
But when it's short, his body hair does other stuff. I don't know how to counter when he has short hair.
Daytime.
Yeah, it's like
Sure.
my hairy ass forearms grow spikes or something.
It's like an armor.
Now I feel
That
bad for
ain't
giving
bad.
you. I feel bad for giving you sweat mutation.
Yeah, when I sweat lava and throw it at you, fucking got him.
It's gonna take you a bit to throw that drip of lava at me.
Oh no, I mean, we're going like 0 to 3 sets of tennis.
Oh,
Like that.
or if it's like a Avatar Last Airbender style where you're like water bending the sweat out of you take it all at once and then turn that into whatever. There we go. Fixed it for you. You constantly dehydrate. You gotta have like a hydration pack on you at all times, like an IV line of.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Why are we talking about mutant powers? Because we're talking about X-Men this week. X-Men 2 Clone Wars for the Sega Genesis, a sequel to X-Men for the Sega Genesis. Can I just say how cool it is that the Sega Genesis got exclusive X-Men video games? These were not ported. These were not from the arcade. They're just straight up Genesis games. Pretty rad.
What Who developed these?
Great question, Mark. This is developed by Head Games Incorporated, published by Sega. X-Men 2 Clone Wars first released May 15th, 1995.
There's a reason why you have to ask who developed it, because the game certainly does not tell you that.
No, it does not. The game jumps.
Great starting point, actually. Because I love that.
Very fucking confused.
Yes.
I love the opening after I'd gone through it and understood what was going on. The first few times launching up this game, I'll be honest, the first time I launched this game up, I was playing on the Mister, and I have my old tube TV hooked up, and I turned on the Mister, and I had it on the main, normal TV. What do we call it?
CRT?
Had it on my, nope, the other
HD one?
flat screen. Yes. The
TV.
had it on the other TV, the main TV.
There you go.
And I was like, you know what? Let me play this on the CRT. So when I launched the ROM, I was like in between switching displays. So when it started, I was like, oh shoot, did I hit something by accident? Did I launch the game? Is this the attract mode that I let the game sit idly for too long and it jumped into?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, listener, this might be the only video game that has a cold open.
Yeah.
Dude, it is
Literally
immediate.
cold.
It is cold. Like,
That's
there is a well, yeah, it's like literally. But there is a fucking rocket within 30 frames of this game booting up coming at you. That's the part that kills me. I cannot believe that they have a projectile within the first 30 frames coming at you on this cold opening. It is bizarre. I same thing, Joe. I had to play this on RetroArch. I shut down the entire emulator, booted it back up, thought, what the fuck? Did I download like one of those weird ROMs? You know,
Yeah, like a ROM
those
hack
hacked
or
ones.
something.
Yeah, so I went back, re-examined, I was good, and then I played through the level and realized what the fuck happened.
Yeah.
It was
I hit
weird.
reset on the cart like 3 times before I started moving forward with it, and I was like, okay, this is intentional.
Like, how many games do you just boot up and it just jumps you in immediately?
None.
Like,
Literally none.
screw
And
the
I-
title, screw everything, just boom.
No. I kind of love it, though. Like, there's no... It's just like, you want to play X-Men, you can play X-Men.
I wouldn't mind it. It's just the rocket
No,
projectile is like
yeah.
ridiculous.
It is very disorienting. It is such a weird choice to do that. And then if you fail that opening stage, you can go back. You can actually pick a mutant and go from there. But
well, I was going to segue into that in a second because I was going to talk
Yeah.
about my experience with this. But yeah,
go for it.
Oh no, this is us kind of getting into the game. I don't know if there was any back of the box stuff or whatever we want to get through.
Yeah, let's set up the stage for what this game is real quick. So, X-Men 2 Clone Wars, straight from the back of the box. Double action when X-Men face their duplicates. X-Men engage in a battle so world-threatening even Magneto switches sides. Mutant kind races to the edge of oblivion at the hands of an evil techno-bio cloning organism, the Phalanx. Be Wolverine, Cyclops, Gambit, Nightcrawler, Beast, Psylocke, and for the first time ever, play as Magneto. X-Men are at their fiercest with Cyclops' optic blast, Wolverine's slashing adamantium claws, and Gambit's hypercharged cards. Use each mutant's superpowered attack to defend the world. Don't care about what the other 3 can do.
I know. I was like, oh man, they got into every character, and then you just stopped. I was like, oh okay.
Yep, that's it.
So who were the? All right, I kind of missed it because I was waiting for everyone to be named. Who were the 4 that I mentioned on the box?
They list everyone.
Well, sorry, the
Wolverine-
ones, the abilities we were told.
Oh, with the abilities, the ones they call out are Cyclops, Wolverine, and Gambit.
Okay.
So, I guess before we jump into like full experience, Matt, I want to hear that, but who did each of us play as primarily? Mark, who was your go-to character?
Oh, Nightcrawler.
Matt?
I evolved. It was Cyclops for a good time, or for the first half, maybe first 2/3, and then Wolverine the last.
Yeah, Wolverine's pretty good
Interesting.
too.
I stuck with Psylocke for most of it. I ended up at some
She's pretty
point
good.
working through and playing as each of them just to see what they all felt like, but I kept coming back to Psylocke. She felt the best to me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like her, Nightcrawler, and Wolverine were my favorites because they could double jump.
The double jump is key, yeah. Yep. I liked Gambit's reach also, but he felt a little slow.
Yeah.
But yeah. So yeah, Matt, jump into it. What
Also, I
what
like
was
the
your
way
experience?
I like how this episode very much mimicked the game, where we just went right into it, then rewound, talked about it for a second. Now we're getting back into it.
Might
There's
be
a good
intentional.
analogy there.
That's called art, Matt.
No, so when this game boots up, and after about the 5th time of me hitting reset or rebooting or whatever, and I realize this is what's happening, I did not like this at all. I did not like Beast. He was slow. I did not like his moveset. Everything sucked. And then I died, and I saw the character selection screen, and I got very happy and stoked. And from that point on, I think I kind of fell in love with this game all the way through until probably the last part of the last level. Yeah, it was a complete 180. Oh god, it was stiff. It was slow. What I wanted to do was not working, as Beast's moveset is not what I wanted to do. It was awful. And then I died, and then everything changed after that.
Yeah, I was surprised at how much I liked this too. Because look, man, it's weighted, right? It's a licensed character platform game on the Sega Genesis from the mid-90s. It is entirely meant to be mediocre at best. It's a rental, right? And I think ultimately, at the end of the day, I don't remember renting this one, but I do think I rented the first one, or at least borrowed it from a friend or something. And it does have that vibe, and it's not, it's not the best Genesis game ever made, but it's really a great Genesis game ever made. And the further in I got with it, and the more I played, the more it was like, no, they did a lot of really neat things in this game. Like, I think that the stages all feel unique. I think some of them get a little tired, but they at least like did something different each time. There's like a different approach to puzzle solving, if you will, platforming, enemies. Like, there's differences within the levels that feel, unique. It's not just like a platformer. Like the temple level where you're like climbing to the top of it, totally different vibe and feel than anything else in the game.
Yeah, I think that was going to be my big point. This isn't like your traditional platformer. Like, how many times in Mario do you go left to right and that's it? Like, this has depth, it has scale, backtracking, and the level design itself. Like, there's one level where you just fall, and it's like a race to shoot the lever or hit the lever, depending on who you're using, to go and keep falling. Like, I thought that was very clever. Even like the second to last level is like a maze, kinda, right? Backtracking. There's an escape sequence that it changes the level enough. The climb of the pyramid. The bosses are not just like shoot 'em up. There's like mechanics involved. God, even the Magneto one it's like Runaway. You really don't fight Magneto until like the very, very end.
And even then, you're not really killing him. You're just trying to trap him, right?
Right,
yeah,
right.
It's like environmental based.
Yeah, I was just shocked at just like, I thought for sure after like 2 levels, I was going to be like, all right, left to right. All right.
Yeah.
Left to right, different environments, different enemies, whatever. But no, I was very shocked. The entire way I was, I was quite pleased. There was even a Sonic drowning level. Like, come on.
Mark, what about you? Was this your first time playing through it? You put this on the list.
No, I've played it a while back. Like, when I first discovered ROMs, like in like middle school or something, there was just a whole summer where I was just enthralled with trying everything out, and downloaded a lot of like 2-player action games or beat 'em ups or whatever. And then this one, because I only had exposure to the first Genesis X-Men game and did not enjoy that one. That one was just very tough for me and very brutal, and I don't know, I never went back to that one even as an adult. I would like to at some point, maybe, but I remember getting a taste for this one, and I did play it with cheats my first time. Just like Game Genie stuff, and I just wanted like infinite health and whatever. Just didn't want to worry about it. Just wanted to go through it, and I just was having a blast. I was so surprised to discover this game. Like, I didn't know it existed before that. I think, growing up in a Nintendo household, you had some Marvel games that featured Wolverine. You had Spider-Man and the X-Men, but that was like LJN or something. some of those Marvel games were developed by Capcom, which aren't bad, but it didn't feel like this. This is probably one of the most like Sega games I've come across, and just everything just felt so solid with the combat and everything. So playing it this time around, it was just a joy. So I wanted everyone to experience that, so that's why I put it on the list. I knew it was going to be positively received for the most part.
Yeah, because it's, we talk a lot about, especially that 16-bit era, there was I think, a discrepancy between platforms. You did not always get the same game per platform. And like, for me growing up way into Batman, there were several Batman the Animated Series games, and I remember renting the Genesis one. I never had a Super Nintendo, so renting the Genesis one. And then it'd be years later via ROMs that I would try the Super Nintendo one, and two totally different games. The Genesis one is super difficult, like, and unfair at times, and I don't know how the heck you're supposed to do any of this stuff. The Super Nintendo one, different vibe entirely, whatever, but like same cover art. And then if you play the Sega CD game, it's a driving game. It's a Batmobile driving game that feels like an arcade, whatever weird thing with cutscenes. It's 3 different games, 3 different platforms where, and also I think those kind of set the stage for what these types of games are for me mentally. And this was just not that. I think that the characters here they did feel similar, generally speaking, right? With 3 buttons, you're not going to be able to do much more in terms of combat, but you did have button combinations that changed how each character behaved. I think that there's subtle animation differences between them enough that it felt different to play each one.
Yeah.
And there's different combos too.
Yeah, like it was really cool to figure out that like there was combinations for characters where like some could wall cling, some can climb, some can jump off, some can double jump, or just
Beast can do a ground pound.
Yeah, like everyone has their own like their mutant abilities, whether you charge it or not. Like if you just do normal punch attack, but if you do that punch attack in the air while holding forward, you kind of do like a jump kick across, like kind of thing. There was a lot to figure out there, and it was cool to have it in this.
What a fast animation that sidekick is, by the way. That is like 0 to 100, like very fast.
That's mostly why I enjoyed, I think, Psylocke and Nightcrawler. Because the way that they do some of their kicks, it just like it covers so much range.
Yeah.
And Wolverine, I was trying to. I think it was Spider-Man and the X-Men that only did it. No, there might have been one other game back then too, but Wolverine could detract his claws for some reason in those games,
and punch.
Yeah, and I was trying to see if you could do that, and you don't, thankfully. But I think in the Capcom, I think the Marvel Superheroes game, which there was also an X-Men game that just used the same sprites and whatever, but Wolverine, I believe, could cling to the ceiling, and you could just scale across ceiling up, and you couldn't do that in this. So I was like, that's okay. I'll take it, I
You
guess.
could scale across the ceiling with Wolverine. Yeah.
Oh, I couldn't figure it out. Like the walls, I could do it, but I couldn't do above me for some reason.
You had to like do like a punch up at when you got to the ceiling.
Okay,
then,
see, because like it felt, for some reason, it felt easier to just do it as Nightcrawler. Because like once you're on the wall, you just hit up, and then he'll just rotate himself.
Yeah, crawl.
Yeah. Wolverine didn't like transition like that, or it was
maybe
tricky.
That was my problem.
It was tricky to do it, but I found better success just jumping off the wall, like right next to it, punching up, and then I caught.
Okay, never mind. Take it back. But Beast should have been able to run on the ceiling like he does in the show.
Yeah.
I don't know how he does it. But...
No, to your point though, like he does in the show, like this pulled in everything from the show super well. Like every stage felt like a different episode from the show. Every stage incorporated elements from, I think, the show and the comic books, obviously, right? It feels like X-Men, which is a big achievement for something like that. When you think about, again, it's contemporaries, not to keep going back to that, but this did it differently, I think. I think not only looking at its contemporaries in terms of comic book adaptations and comic book, source material, but also like this comes out in 95, a good year after Super Metroid, and you have a Metroid escape sequence. Like you've got a video game thing in it, and I think, I don't know, it worked well. I like the interactivity of the stages. I like the things they did, like that second stage, I guess it is, where the Sentinel, you're kind of like climbing the tower, the one before the escape sequence. Like, just, I know what a Sentinel is now from, years of comic book exposure and whatnot, but like seeing just the foot of it, it's iconic, you know what it is right away, and like you're like, oh man, I'm gonna climb to the top of it. Like it, and obviously there's like a computer piece that's telling you about the Sentinels before you go into that stage, but still, like it felt so real.
Yeah, and like to have like what was like the first half of the game, you're taking out like some of the biggest enemies.
Yeah,
you would expect to be like final bosses or something. Like it's it's not the head Sentinel, it's not Magneto, like, or Apocalypse. Like,
yeah,
that should have been like a final boss moment, but it's like, nah, we're keeping this.
Yeah.
This is like the third boss you fight or something.
Was Apocalypse the final boss of the first Genesis game?
Couldn't tell you.
Probably Magneto.
I barely made it past the danger room.
Yeah. I did go back to the original game and played a little bit of it, and you can feel a difference, like noticeably, especially if you jump side by side, which is cool that it wasn't just like, hey, that first one worked, make another one and add 2 more characters, because they did a bit more than that.
Yeah.
Another note that I jotted down while playing is every time that you jump to that console, that like computer screen, the beep that happens, I thought I was turning on my Dreamcast. It has the exact Dreamcast beep.
It makes you think, like, especially for, emulating it, it makes you think you did something wrong. And it's like, it like froze or was about to break or something.
I dug into some things on this one. Did you know that the instrument sounds change depending on the character that you're playing?
Well, not noticed that.
Very subtle. I didn't notice it while playing. I learned this later on when just reading about the game. But yeah, you do. So it's just kind of like the music itself is always the same, the actual composition. But which sound fonts are at play are different depending on which character. Again, very subtle, very whatever, but, and if you're playing 2-player mode, there's like a weird combination of sounds that happen. Additionally, Mark might know and like this fun fact, the music, do you know who composed the music, Mark?
I actually don't know any development trivia on this one.
The music was... I need to, I don't have the name in front of me, but it's the same composer who did work on, or did the entire music for Soul Reaver.
Oh. You would not have, would not have ever guessed that.
Yeah, no,
Because, like, the music in this is so, like, it does stand out. Like, it's not enough for me to, like, hum a tune, but, like, when you're playing it, like, you can't ignore it. Like, it has, some songs have some good beats to it. It just has a very, like, I don't know, like, there's often that little fight between some nerds with, like, Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis, and sometimes, the sound gets brought up, or the music, and now, like, we're like, SNES had a better sound font or something, or it's like, or sound card. It's like, I think it depends on the game, because, like, yeah, like, there are some Sega games where I don't care too much for how it sounds. Some of it sounds wet and mushy, but if used right, it sounds, it's very good. And this is one of those examples, I think.
Yeah, like none of this is like stand out tunes that you will find yourself humming, but in the moment, like it all works really well, and it's really good Genesis sound work. Kurt Harland is the composer's name. He'd worked on, previous to this, Sunsoft Scooby-Doo Mystery, and then X-Men 2 Clone Wars. He'd later do the music for Gex, Enter the Gecko, Legacy of Kain, Soul Reaver 2, Legacy of Kain Defiance, Death Jr. 2, Root of Evil.
Wow.
Resistance Burning Skies for the PlayStation Vita. You know, the good stuff. Did you have a favorite level, either of you?
I will say it's definitely not the temple level, where you're scaling up and boulders are just cheaply hitting you.
The boulders are awful.
Because my mentality, my brain with this game is like, I gotta kill everything. But it's like, no, it's also a platformer. Sometimes you just gotta get past everything. And that's the real point here. You're not getting experience or you're not getting points. You just gotta go. Like, right.
Well, I will also mention then another dishonorable mention is the level right after that. With all those fuckers just in blind spots everywhere. And by fuckers, there's guys that roll or jumping at you. Yeah. They sucked. Now I'm thinking of all the bad levels. No, I like the I really dug that fallen level of the platforms.
Right.
And that was one of my proud gaming moments there too, where it took me a couple tries, but then I realized that you don't have to avoid boomerangs or the bombs. Just quickly shoot or hit the lever, and you start sinking and everything. Like, you either avoid the bomb explosions or it kills the boomerang enemies on those levers. So I really dug that a lot. And that escape sequence I did not see that coming. That was a pretty cool. I don't think it was terribly difficult. I had despite me making a couple wrong turns, I still had probably 40 seconds left on the clock, I think. It gave you plenty of time.
They give you plenty of time, and I also feel like weirdly enough, as samey as that whole section was, I knew my way back mostly. Same thing. There was one or 2 points where I made the wrong, up or down choice, but yeah, generally.
Some good foreshadowing.
I like the Sentinel level.
There's some good foreshadowing with that, because at the beginning of that stage, you have the emergency exit that you can't go, and you just think, oh, it's just another, just another piece of art in the background or whatever, and then you realize, oh, that's where I'm escaping. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Even, I forget the name of the stage, but it's basically just blue, and it's towards the end. You just have the army of those yellow hover soldiers shooting at you, and then those big muscle men that look like Goro but only have 2 arms instead of 4.
Yeah.
That whole stage I didn't mind so much. Kind of felt like you could just run through it, and you didn't feel so constricted with jumping and everything, because I feel like some of the levels you got stopped by some platforms and you couldn't do a lot of your bigger attacks. So I liked having the space.
I guess
so no one's picking
separately
the swamp then.
from, huh?
So no one's picking the swamp levels then as their favorite levels.
It's fine. I think a lot of these levels too also depending on who you're playing as, it changes the experience greatly.
The enemies in the swamp, not the flies, but the actual dudes, are they something in comics, or are they just the local tribesmen?
Because
that felt random.
Are you talking about those 2-armed Goro people?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, the ones that try to get behind you and swing their axe or whatever. Oh, in the trees in the swamp level is the humanoid.
Right.
They seemed out of place in that. I don't know why. I wasn't expecting that enemy in the swamp.
It was probably a limitation of how many enemies can they add in this game.
Right.
So, I mean, a lot do get reused in some places, and I guess that goes with the narrative of like the Phalanx like cloning everything. But I'm not sure exactly who they are. I'm sure there is some comic nod there. I wouldn't see why they would have. Well, yeah, something like that. I don't know.
I don't know. It was just weird.
Probably nothing huge, but just needed a henchman. That wasn't a bug.
Right.
What is your, I guess each of you, your kind of respective history with the X-Men?
I was basically born and raised on comic books and superheroes. I'm the youngest of 3 brothers, so my oldest brother loves Superman. Obsessed, collected comics, everything. And then second oldest wasn't quite into comics as much as the oldest, but was definitely like into like Spider-Man and for the most part, stuff like that. And then I come along and I kind of get a little bit of taste of everything. I was really into Batman and Captain America, and then when X-Men happened, that definitely took the center for a bit. And we were big action figure collectors, so we were trying to get every X-Men member that we could find. It got so bad where we'd go into like KB Toys and or Toys R Us, and whichever ones we couldn't get at the time, but we knew we needed, we would try to hide them and put them behind other action figures that nobody would look at, like put them behind like the Star Trek figures or like somewhere else, or like in a Barbie section or something. Hopefully, not realizing that employees go through that stuff and fix it all the time, but sometimes they didn't, and our saved spot would still be there. But yeah, watched the cartoon, definitely had comics.
Yeah.
Loved X-Men.
Matt, what about you?
So, I mean, I've said this multiple times. I was never really the big Saturday morning cartoon person, but I think my first exposure to X-Men was a few episodes of that animated series. And it's weird. Like, I guess I really don't get real, not that I was ever big into X-Men, but I guess I don't get real exposure and real interest in it until the movies. But like, it wasn't the movie, like, of course there were some mutants that I'm learning about for the first time in those movies, but like I had a good grasp of, like Storm, Cyclops, like I knew the cast, so I think I gathered more from the cartoons than I think, but the movies, I liked like X-Men 1 and 2, 3.
And of course, the arcade game.
Arcade game as well. Yeah, I did play that a lot. Maybe I might have a part of me learning some of the mutants as well.
I feel like that must have been it for me, because I vaguely remember watching the show. I remember there was like, I don't know, it's one of those things in hindsight as an adult, you look back and you're like, oh, I think those people were going through a divorce. But there was a kids that my brother and I weren't particularly like close friends with, but randomly like they were staying at our house a bunch, like sleepover stuff. And it was like, oh, I think my mom felt bad because something was going, you look back, right. But as a thank you for us hosting these children that we didn't want to hang out with, we were gifted action figures. And I remember getting like we got a weird Spider-Man figure that like glowed in the dark. And we got a Cyclops figure where you press a button on his back and his eyes would.
I had that. Up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think probably every Cyclops toy did that, but yeah. Well, wait, was it the Cyclops that wore like the Racer X outfit where he had the all blue like covering his hair with the white stripe going down and the white X across his chest, or was it the?
I feel like hair was exposed. I feel like this was kind of
the
classic.
Blue and yellow.
Yeah. And I remember that, but like again, like we weren't super into X-Men, but I think just that arcade game the cartoon, and I think even like straight up kids wearing t-shirts, because X-Men seemed to permeate the culture in a way that other things didn't. Like Batman was huge in the 90s. That 89 movie kind of set the stage, followed by the animated series, and Batman was a figure, but just alongside was Spider-Man and I think X-Men, and to the point where like even growing up, and spoiler alert for my review for this game, I'm kind of borrowing a bit from what I already wrote about, but I don't remember thinking about the X-Men as Marvel versus DC, or one was in the other or whatever. I did very much know that Batman was in a different thing than Spider-Man, but the X-Men felt like they were something more. Like they were their own thing. Like there was just a separate entity of X-Men, even in the way that like Justice League didn't feel. Like Justice League felt like, here's a group of individual heroes who came together. I didn't know of the Avengers until much, much later, but even the Avengers are no different, right? But the X-Men, they are a unit, right? Like they are the X-Men. They are together. And I think that kind of made a strong impact on how you view them as a kid.
Yeah, especially if you grew up with the cartoon, I think just that era of shows that would just it would definitely influence a lot of shows after it, and even for people just growing up with it, it's just something that just doesn't leave. And obviously, like here we come now, like full circle, like X-Men '97 is coming back, and
Is it really?
They're continuing where the original series left off and picking it up right from there and going forward. And that's insane.
They're doing that. HBO's doing that with Bruce Timm and that Batman thing, right? That's totally still happening.
Well, Batman is still happening, but I thought that was like its own.
No,
world,
I'm being
right?
a jerk because they canceled everything in the world.
Yeah. No, it's yeah.
No, that's really cool, right? And I think that shows like how impactful that show in particular was.
And like dumb peek into Mark's life trivia. That's pointless. But with those action figures we would collect, sometimes you would get like those bigger like 12-inch figures, and I never really knew what to do with those. Wasn't really a fan of the huge action figures, but I think we would have like one or two that would like gifted to us or something.
Yeah.
Never did much with those, but I think at one point I wanted to collect a bunch of the X-Men ones, but I decided not to. And then started doing it with the smaller, like average, like 6 to 7 inch toys. But the credit sequence in the X-Men show, it's nothing spectacular. It's just CG renders of all the characters, and they just do like a 360 rotation while you hear some just electric guitar just doing a crazy ass solo. And I would do that with my toys as I'm watching the show. I would just fucking just rotate the toy in front of me and then quickly pick up another one and try to do it. And like at first I tried to do it with the big ones, but it didn't work the same. But the bigger toys looked more like those models. So I'm wondering if that was like the CG models were the basis for printing those toys out or something. I don't know.
It was advertisement the entire time.
Yeah, no, it totally was. Yeah.
Yeah, where are you at with X-Men these days, I guess?
Definitely, I don't know, definitely fallen off. I haven't really, read comics or anything in quite some time, or just not as much as I used to, and the movies went in a direction that I didn't really care too much for. I remember like when that first movie came out, and DVDs were not mainstream just yet. They were like just starting to come out. I had the VHS of X-Men 1 and like would watch that religiously because that's all we had. But then since then, I don't know, like the First Class movies, they're okay. Not all of them. Maybe like 2 are good at best, but I don't know. I haven't really been as in touch with it lately, and hopefully, with this '97 cartoon or something, there's a better resurgence, or it's taken care of a little better. But video games was always like my main focus for X-Men. It seems like I never really missed one besides like the movie licensed ones or something. Like X-Men Legends 1 and 2, or like playing as an X-Men in like Marvel Ultimate Alliance or something. Yeah, it's something like that. So as long as there's video games around it, I think I didn't really miss too much of that.
Yeah, it's
Do you
funny.
think that's the...
I was gonna say,
Sorry.
it's funny you bring up Legends, because when I saw X-Men 2, I thought, I don't know why, my dumb brain, I thought we were playing Legends. I was like getting my brain wrapped around playing Legends and how long that might take. But then I like I don't know, like a couple weeks later I already read it. I was like, oh, this is that one.
Well, yeah, because there aren't many X-Men games with a 2 in it either. I think there's the movie one, it's just X2 or something, but then you have Legends 2, and then you just have this 2. I don't think there's anything else. So, it's understandable.
I'm sorry, Joe. What were you going to say?
No, I mean, obviously the all the film rights stuff got so weird with that. X-Men was the first thing that got made after Marvel sold the movie rights off in the late 90s during that little bankruptcy scare. And then it would be the one that Marvel worked the hardest to regain control of, so much so that its parent company would buy the other parent company. So I think, I don't know how much you guys were following comic book world-wise or anything like that, but there was actually a lot of weird, dumb stuff in terms, like there were points in the comic books where they were just not going to publish X-Men comic books because they weren't going to be able to profit off of action figures from the movies. Like crazy stuff like that, where like
yeah, that's insane.
Same thing with Fantastic Four. That was the other one from them, that they were just kind of like, removing them slowly from the comics. Or there were the X-Men comics, but like you were not going to see those characters cross into other Marvel books because they weren't in the movies and they were trying to drive.
Is that why Wolverine joined the Avengers?
In the comics?
Yeah. I mean, he was just a part of every group. If there's a superhero group, he's in it.
He was, but then like there was a point after, like, once the movies started really picking up steam in the early 2010s, there was a point where I might be wrong about this. It's been a while since and I never followed Marvel closely enough, but I recall they pulled Wolverine from the Avengers. Like they made sure that the Avengers in the comics maybe didn't match 1-to-1 what was on screen, but it was always characters that could have ended up on screen. But yeah, more and more of the Avengers, more of the Fantastic Four characters, all just kind of plucked from any of that. Spider-Man kind of got a pass because he's Spider-Man, but
right.
Yeah, I mean, upcoming we've got the Marvel's Wolverine to be published and developed by Insomniac Games. I don't know of any other kind of contemporary games with the X-Men outside of the aforementioned kind of Ultimate Alliance, right?
Right. Yeah, it's been a bit. Yeah, had like one or two fighting games on PS1 that were pretty cool.
Yeah, there were a few there. And I feel like X-Men will always kind of be around. Did you know there was supposed to be a direct sequel to this here X-Men 2 Clone Wars?
Oh.
I did not until 15 minutes ago.
It was canceled prior to completion, but it was titled X-Women.
Okay.
And it was meant to focus on the female members of the X-Men.
Could you play as Storm in the first one?
I don't know.
I know you could be Rogue, but and Jean Grey you couldn't play as because she would save you if you fell like off a cliff or something, and then she would stop after that. But
yeah.
But I feel like if we were able to play as Storm in this game, she probably would have been the best character to play as. She probably would have been so OP.
She was in the arcade game, yeah?
Yes.
I'm gonna use the internet. But Gambit, Nightcrawler, Wolverine, and Cyclops were the playable characters. Storm, Rogue, Iceman, and Archangel could be called upon for support. And Jean Grey would pick up characters who fall in the original X-Men for Genesis. The arcade game...
Storm would have been really cool.
You could play in the arcade game as Cyclops, Colossus, Wolverine, Storm, Nightcrawler, or Dazzler.
Yeah.
So...
Perfect.
We kind of meandered a bit here from Clone Wars, but another big part of this, the titular Clone Wars, you do end up fighting clone versions of the 6 playable characters by the end. Or, I forget now, is there a clone Magneto? Do you fight all 7?
Couldn't tell you.
Oh? Is this where...
I stopped. As soon as I saw that trope happen, and I'm not done. I'm done.
Why was that the point? What was that the breaking point?
Well, let's just say the boss before it was annoying as fucking shit, and then you get to that point, and then this is my biggest problem with the game. Honestly, biggest problem with the game. Bosses need health bars. I hate when games give you the ability to have like different hit ratios, and you can't tell like it. If it's not 3 hits and you're out, like I need to know what am I making progress? Because at some points, like you're hitting people, and I don't know. Like the game is very much like level design based. So I don't know if I'm supposed to be doing something or if I'm actually plucking away at this character. That's where I it's like Samus Returns all over again. Like I need a health bar. Not Samus. The last Metroid game that came out.
Well, you need some sort of indication. Like Monster Hunter does a great job of showing characters or the monsters you're hunting sort of. They start to drool. They start to laugh. There's no health bar, but you're getting some sort of feedback that what you're doing is
there's
working.
Feedback. The enemy's blinking, but like, man, like some of these boss fights, I just felt like they were going on for way too long, and that's fine if I have like I was using Cyclops a lot. I understand like the range on his laser might not be the most OP attack because it has range. Like I understand that, but like. How many times do I have to hit someone with the eye lasers before I knock them out? Just giving me that sense of where I'm at in the fight or if I'm supposed to be doing something is helpful. So, like, going back to that last level, the crawling boy, forever, and that tail, that charge attack on the wall when he breaks through the wall and that's like your chance to hit him, very fucking hard to dodge both of those charges and not get hit unless you're Magneto. So like I struggled there, and then once I figured out we're navigating that awful level more, and then this cloning into the X-Men, I got it. Moving on. The only thing I did was make sure that was the last level, and then I was done.
Yeah, there's no Magneto clone. Which kind of makes sense.
I mean, fair, you kind of fought him, right?
Yeah, you fought him and then earned him. The one thing that I felt with this, because this game's not perfect, but it's really good. I would love a reimagining of this today that makes the characters feel just a little more unique and changes up some of those weird repetitive stage elements, right? Like, there were parts that just kind of, I don't know, like if some of the level design, I think the level design for the time was, I think, a step above what you would get in a game like this, but it still is like missing the mark a little bit. And I don't know, man, if a new one of these came out that was just sort of similar, but tweaked a bit, I feel like it would be a really, really fun game.
Yeah, this game was stiff at times, especially for some of the platforming parts. And you having to be quick. There was a lot of times where you're jumping, and this is every platformer back then. I mean, Castlevania is just as guilty of this, but like you're jumping into the unknown and there's an enemy right there. You have to quickly react or whatever. And it felt like the game was a hair bit too stiff or sluggish for some of its reaction time. There were some times where my inputs, again, could be the ROM. I'm not going to blame it on the game, but I feel like the stiffness has something to do with it. My inputs just wouldn't input. Like, I tried to jump, wouldn't jump. I was like, okay, sure. So yeah, a little bit of that.
Final thoughts on X-Men 2 Clone Wars?
As far as an X-Men game goes, I think it's up there. I think it's one of the best ones you're gonna experience out of what we got.
I think it's a good nugget on the Genesis as a whole. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know the Genesis library as much as I would the Super Nintendo library, of course, but I would put it on a recommend if you have a Genesis.
Yeah, I would too. It's definitely in top 50 Genesis games. Easily.
Better than those games with the hedgehog involved.
No comment.
You mean that wasn't Beast?
Beast is a piece of shit in this game. Sorry for whoever decides to main him. He sucks. I've tried him multiple times at different levels. Awful. Fucking terrible.
Dang.
Nope. For a game stiff, I can't use extra stiff.
He should have had a double jump. It's weird that he didn't give him one.
Yeah. He's heavy, I guess. I don't know.
He's like the most athletic.
Cyclops all day, just until
one
the fly level.
thing I didn't do this time around. I like made a note to myself to try to do it, but I actually didn't. I wanted to revisit the Game Gear X-Men games during this just to see how they compare. My memory of them, they're pretty good, but I don't remember. Did I buy one?
I didn't know they existed. Excuse me.
And they're unique too. No, I didn't buy one. There's one that's kind of like that original Genesis one where you're just kind of playing through a side-scroll platformer. I mean, it's the same style of game and everything, but yeah. Anywho, I'm happy we got to play. Like, this was one of those ones when we put the list together back in November of last year and we looked at what was coming up. I was like, "Oh, I'm excited to." Like, I'm happy we've got a superhero game on the list, and X-Men's one that, like, there's certain superheroes where if they end up kind of in my whatever now, I'm like, But X-Men's not. I was, like, excited to. Like, I don't go after X-Men content the way that I do other superheroes, but I'm always happy to have it surfaced, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Another fun fact about this one, before we rank it, the developers, Head Games Incorporated, did not make many games. However, the game they made prior to this was Taz in Escape from Mars, which was a game I owned on the Genesis and loved because it felt like you were playing as Taz. And I don't know, it wasn't a great game. It was, from what I remember, pretty tough, but I remember having a lot of fun with it.
I had a Taz game on Super Nintendo, but I think it was like
Me too.
behind a character running or something
On a long path.
Yep.
And it was like a time trial thing. Yep, I remember
It was
that.
so weird.
It was tough too.
It is time that we rank X-Men 2 Clone Wars. On our list, which you can follow at thefreecheese.com/thelist. We've currently got 33 games on the list. This makes 34. And where do we think X-Men 2 Clone Wars sits?
Yeah, that's tough.
You want me to do it?
Yeah, sure.
between Star Fox Assault and The Legend of Zelda: The Minish Cap. I think it's above Zelda, below Star Fox.
Oh man, I don't know how we always do this, and we're right. I mean, there's 32 different options, and how we are always kind of like right next to each other in terms of ranking.
Yeah,
it's a hive mind.
Yeah.
I started. It's not often because I usually go to the website to refer to the list. This one, I usually scroll right to the area where I'm thinking. This one, I started high. I was like, man, I like this game a lot. Then I'm looking, I'm like, where do I? No.
Yeah.
And then you kind of scroll further than you thought. But yeah, I'm actually above Star Fox Assault.
I am too.
Okay.
You're not gonna like what I'm about to say.
No, I think that you both probably like this better than Parodius.
I do.
And I think you like it better than Buster Hawk.
I do.
Does it beat Tricky?
I don't know if I like it better than Buster Hawk.
I was gonna put it between Tricky and Double Dash.
It's weird because we have the two games like that lumped right next to each other, so it's weird to break them up. But I don't know. I just kind of being a few weeks removed from Parodius. Maybe I'm looking at this with rosy glasses and I don't know what I'm talking about. But I feel like I don't know, Buster Hawk. I don't know the words I'm looking for here. Feels more robust than Parodius, and I don't know.
No, Parodius definitely, while the levels change up, you're still kind of like doing the same exact thing. There's a lot of repeat enemies where Advanced Buster Hawk Glay Lancer, there's a story that's happening. You're kind of moving through stages in space. It does feel unique. There's bosses that feel different each time. I feel like Glay Lancer also it's a solid, like, musically it's obviously stellar, but I think as a Genesis game it's really good.
Should we put it like between the two?
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of thinking.
Yeah, I'm good with
It's weird because with X-Men 2, and I don't think I get this from Glay Lancer or Parodius, but I'm sure I've talked about this, the number of times I've brought up from software games, but the first Dark Souls, whenever you go to replay it, or whenever I go to replay it, I love the beginning, and then I know there's things at the end and areas that I fucking can't stand, and I'm gonna have to get through them to beat the game. And I feel the same way about X-Men upon a replay. Like, first 3 levels, I love a lot, and then when we get to the swamp, I'm gonna want to turn it off and not play it anymore. It's fine a first time through, but I can see that being in the back of my mind as I approach those levels upon a replay. I don't think I would get that from a Glay Lancer. I don't think I would get that from Parodius either, but between that in combination with some of the stiffness and whatever, I think that's why I get slotted right here. Love the level design, though. I mean, kind of just making it a variety of gameplay going across the entire game. But again, like, I kind of am equating the swamp to Tomb of the Giants, if you know what I'm referring to. I'm kind of referring to that last second to last maze level to like, what's the fucking fire pit hell in Dark Souls? The one at the very end where the fucking tree boss is. That's shit. I'm acquainted to that. If you know, you know. But I don't see me rushing to replay this because of those areas.
I'm looking at it. I typed it in the list, and looking at it it looks nice.
Okay.
I think it fits together. Like, peanut butter, jelly, right between 2 hot slices of bread. I think it fits. And is that now dead in the middle of the list? It sure is.
X-Men?
Yep. So
For now.
Yeah, this was the first time where I really thought, I was like, man, it's gonna be high, and I was like looking, I was like, it's not gonna be No Mercy, and not gonna beat Metal Gear.
Yeah, I think if we were doing like just Genesis games, I'm sure it'd be probably high up there.
You've got me thinking about some weird episode ideas, but that's for a different time in a different place than now. Next week, we're going back to the Nintendo 64 with Chameleon Twist 2. Join us for episode 471. Until then, Mark, thanks for picking X-Men 2 Clone Wars regarding the episode. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, listener, for listening. We'll be back next week with Chameleon Twist 2. Goodbye.